it's kind of funny the way I met Terry is I really met his parents first, and his dad was a chiropractor in South St. Louis, and I got to Boston. I got down to St. Louis. I'm from Minnesota, and didn't know anybody in that area. And a friend of mine, Bill Draghi, we both played minor league baseball together, told me about his chiropractor, Dr. Ken Yochum. So we went down to meet Dr. Yochum, and he was a great guy. You know, just he was like a dad figure already to me. And I met Mrs. Yochum, and they kept telling me about this great son they had, and going to National College of Chiropractic. And I just I thought it was a proud dad speaking about his son with that, and you know, I didn't know what to expect when I saw Terry, because Dr. Yochum was a real dynamic guy, and he was telling me what a great kid Terry was. Well, Terry shows up, and you know, damned if it wasn't true. He's my first radiology teacher there, and you know, just a great teacher, best teacher I ever had. And he's just a little bit older than me, and but he just seemed so much more mature than me at the time, and I learned a lot from him. And then, you know, I turned that his love for baseball was the same as mine, so he got me on a baseball team, and we played you know, a couple summers together in the St. Louis area. But Dr. Yochum is the one that really got me involved with Terry. And the thing I remember about Dr. Yochum was such a sincere guy. He reminded me of a little Harry Truman. You know, those guys from South St. Louis. They're just they have a certain way about them. And Terry is that same Missouri boy type attitude with that. And my wife had some serious problems with her sinuses, and I didn't know anything about chiropractors. I had been to one once as a minor league baseball player. So they brought me down to see Dr. Yochum, and my wife went in to see him, and he comes in the room and says a few things and does this treatment, and she just feels great. And I had no idea what he did. He cracked her neck, and he did this little sinus treatment that he had come up with, and he cured her of those things. And since that time, he was my field doctor. And so when Terry would come into town, I'd see Terry on and off. And then as time went on, Terry and I got to be better and better friends. And so that's kind of the long and short of how I met Terry Yochum.
My initial contact with Terry, I was a trimester 3 student at Texas Chiropractic College, and it had to be late 1989, maybe early 1990, and the college was going through a rough period of time in its history. Things weren't very positive there on campus, and I was really beginning to question my decision to become a chiropractor. And we had an assembly, and we had had assemblies before, and I will say that the people had come in were perhaps less than what I was looking for as a role model. And so I go to this assembly expecting a similar event, and what we got was an hour and a half of Terry Yochum. This was just after the book had been released, so it was in the bookstores, and so he was making a tour of all the chiropractic colleges, and I just remember being absolutely mesmerized. He lectured for an hour and a half, and mostly he talked about the process of writing the book, which was certainly a labor of love that went on for years for Terry, and really was a sacrifice for him. And he began to explain what it meant for the profession, and the doors that it was opening, and the doors that had closed on him as he tried to write the book, and how challenging it was. And as I sat there, I was just so proud that somebody was out there doing something first class, the right way, and was doing it on the academic side. And I was a trimester 3 student. I hadn't had any clinical courses yet, but I walked right out of there and went over to the bookstore and bought the book, and came back to get it autographed. And I remember telling my parents about his lecture and trying to remember all of the stories about how hard it was to write, because I was just so proud that somebody in the profession that I was entering had accomplished that, and was so focused and dedicated, and had really made such a name and had such an accomplishment in an academic endeavor.
Right.
So that was my initial my initial contact with Terry. He didn't know me. He autographed my book, and I still look at that every once in a while and remember.
Yeah, it was a great book.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I think you've answered how long have you known him since you were little. Do you remember any unique or funny stories concerning your relationship with Terry?
I guess I'll go first. As I then matriculated through the college, really with this image then of Dr. Yochum burned in my mind, and certainly I spent hours with the book then, and some of his residents were teachers at our school, so I would, I just had I had elevated him to such a level of perfection in my head that he was this academic giant. And 1 month before I graduated, Dr. Yochum was coming through Houston, and one of the faculty members invited me to go to a Houston Astros baseball game with Terry. Yeah. And he was going to take him. Terry had never been to the Astrodome, and so I was going to go, and I was pretty excited. And I really didn't know the baseball side of Terry. I had only seen him on a stage giving a lecture, and so in my mind he was this academician. And we go to the Houston Astrodome. I remember we were sitting about 5 rows from the dugout, right at first base. And early in the game, the first baseman for the other team, and I wish I could remember who it was, he booted a ball. And Terry was on him. I was embarrassed. It was so bad. Intense. Terry was screaming at him about kicking that ball, and you should be ashamed. And then the next inning, when the guy came out, Terry was yelling, "I know you can hear me. You've got rabbit ears. I know you can hear me." And I was just staring there thinking, this is the same guy. Yeah, the intensity was unbelievable.
I know exactly what you're saying.
So that was my second introduction to Terry Yochum.
Yeah,
how about you?
Well, I can see that happening because there's the chiropractic side. You just can't believe how he can turn. It's like he becomes Mikey all of a sudden. I don't know who this guy is, but I was so proud of Terry with that book. I'd known him before the book, and he's a class human being, and just proud that he represented our profession just like you. I go to his lectures and it's just like, oh my God, I'm so proud of what he is and how he represents our profession. Then he wrote this book, and it was just, the incredible part to me, we were talking about this earlier, is that he hand wrote this book. It's such a labor, and I couldn't believe what he did. He's a normal guy. What I see in Terry is he's a smart guy. He's not the smartest person I've ever met, but he's just the most intense human being, and he brings that from chiropractic to his baseball skills. And I remember one of the kids in chiropractic school, he was so impressed with Terry Yochum, and this kind of way I felt with Terry. He was the president of his class, and they asked him if he would give Terry a ride home after his lecture, and he goes, "Oh my God!" He said he had his best suit on to meet Dr. Yochum because he knew he was going to have to introduce him. And after the thing, they said, "Well, you're going to take him to the airport." And he goes, "Oh gosh, I can't do that." And he runs out to his car, and he says he rips off his shirt and he takes off his T-shirt and scrubs his whole car down with his T-shirt, throws the T-shirt away, gets back in his suit, and then he's sweating bullets, and he takes Dr. Yochum to the airport. But he's sort of an icon that way. But what I like about it is he's my friend, and just see him as a human being, but with exceptional talents. And on the baseball side of it, one time we were at a lecture with Dr. Bill Draghi, and Terry's giving a lecture, and he's Terry Yochum now, and we kind of want to remind him who he is, and so we have this young kid raise his hand. He goes, "Dr. Yochum, I understand you play baseball," and that turns Terry the other way. He's getting away from the lecture for an hour now, so he goes, "Yes, I do, and as a matter of fact, I still play baseball." So Bill set him up for this one. He says, "Is it true you played with Babe Ruth?" And he goes, "I know who put you up to that. I know who's in charge of that." And we had a lot of baseball fun with him too. When I was playing baseball with him, he was a very good pitcher, and it's true. If he was left-handed, I think he could have done something with it. But he didn't really throw hard. And me being a shortstop and my third baseman, we had a little discussion before the game. We said, "No, Terry, we want you. Don't throw anything inside." They had some big guys on this team. Because everything that he'd throw inside, if they hit it really hard. So we said, "Please, Terry, throw them high and away, and just try to make them go the other way." So he was good about it. You can see him smile when they hit the ball the other way with that, but he's quite a baseball player. So those are some of my stories about Terry Yochum.
I'm sure you're going to enjoy the part about not being so smart. What are your memories of Terry's parents, and what effect do you think they have had on his life?
Mind if I take that one first? Because, yeah, Terry, I probably might, I don't know, did you ever meet Terry's parents?
I met his mother.
His mother, yeah. Yeah, again, that was my first introduction to Terry, was his mom and dad, and they lived in South St. Louis, and they call it the scrubby Dutch area of St. Louis. It's all these beautiful little homes that are just neat as a pin. And, you know, so I went down and met Dr. Yochum at his clinic, and he was an intense human being. And I never saw a guy that was such a perfectionist. His notes, he would talk to someone, and you know how we have to take these great notes nowadays. Well, he would, if they stuttered or anything, it was in his notes. The notes would be a typical examination might have 10, 12 pages of notes. I'd never seen such thorough notes in my whole life. And then he had an X-ray machine that looked like my mom's sewing machine. It was the oldest sewing. It was the oldest X-ray machine I've ever seen, and it looked like it couldn't take a picture. He took beautiful pictures. Every one came out just great. And then so Doc would throw us in his Cadillac, and he brought us over to meet his wife, and just the nicest lady. I mean, she had to be nice to put up with him because he was intense like Terry, like Inga, just like Inga. And but that's my first memories of those two. And if I look at Terry now, and I see their footprint all over him, because Terry's got that intensity, but he's got that goodness that both of them have. And I think one of Doc's favorite sayings was, "Right is right, and wrong is nobody." Is that what it went with that? I just remember him always saying that. And he was, when he wanted to be right about something, he wanted to be perfectly clear that he knew what he was talking about. And he made doggone sure if he wasn't right, he'd look it up, he'd research it, and be right. And Mrs. Yochum would just sit back and just kind of smile, and just a nice lady.
Great. What impact has baseball had on Terry's life?
I'm going to let you take that.
You're going to let me take that one too? Well, I see Terry as not a frustrated baseball player, but thank God he wasn't left-handed, because if he would have been left-handed, you know, he could have got into professional baseball, I think, and I think that it would have been terrible for our profession. So it's just weird how God works, you know.
It's true.
But his intensity on the baseball field, I was reading another part of this book that's going to be coming out, and the guy was saying how hard he was on umpires, and he was terrible on those umpires. Just so intense that, you know, if the call didn't go his way, man, he let him know it, you know, because, you know, right is right and wrong is wrong, you know. And you know, he just had a burning desire, and whatever ability he had, he gave it 100% all the time, just like with his book. And he's just, you know, he's a real bulldog. That was the type of baseball player it is. But you just see the two crossover. You know, he's so different with both of those. But you know, it's just the intensity. I've never played with someone who was that intense, and I played professional baseball. He's the most intense guy. Tony La Russa with the St. Louis Cardinals was about the same intensity as Terry Yochum. And you know, La Russa is a great manager. But I'm trying to think of some stories with when we were playing ball. Well, one thing that I think is ironic right now is Terry has become an umpire.
Right.
In his older age here, now he's 60s plus, and he's become an umpire.
Perfect irony.
God is paying umpires back somehow with that thing. But yeah, that's there's definite correlation between Terry's baseball and his chiropractic.
Now, what unique accomplishments in his profession do you know as being a first or unusual?
That's a long list.
Yes.
I know that Terry's textbook was the first textbook written by a chiropractor and published by a medical publisher. And I know that it became one of their bestsellers of all times. Williams and Wilkins is a respected academic publisher, and Terry's book has become one of their, certainly the gold standard of sales for them. And see just by seeing that book is the number of doors it opened for other authors. And there are numerous other authors that had the opportunity then to write a book and had a major publisher work with them because of the work that Terry did on the first book and because of the credibility that his work gave. Terry also is on the faculty at the University of Colorado Health Science Center in the radiology department. And I have had the privilege of attending radiology rounds with Terry there, and the respect that he has earned there is amazing. And again, it's another support for our profession, and it represents us in ways that most people never see. But I know that Terry early, perhaps in the first year, but certainly early in his time at the University of Colorado, was voted by the residents as the faculty member of the year. And that was a major accomplishment. And then to top it off, he was voted that a second year and then a third.
Right.
I believe he was the first member of the faculty at the University of Colorado to ever be voted twice, much less in a row. And I don't know how many times he's won it now, but I believe he's above 3. And so again, small things that people don't necessarily see that really represent this profession very well in multiple ways.
Yeah, his teaching in Australia and his seminars he's given across the country to different medical groups, introduce himself to the medical profession, puts up a great face for chiropractic. I remember one time Terry was telling me a story that there's another famous radiologist, a medical radiologist named Greenfield, and he wrote a book also, and he went into a tribute he thought to Terry was he had left Terry's books out on his desk and his own book on his desk, and he left his office and he came back and somebody stole the books, but they only stole Terry's book. so he said, I don't know what that means, but that's
I think it's good.
That's a good thing. And what I like about Terry too is the way he inspires the young chiropractors and myself. And one of his lectures, and this is Terry Yochum, I think Terry's heart. When he wrote that book, he didn't write it for the money or for the fame or anything like that. He got to the end of his lecture and he said to the kids, he goes, I want to let you know why I wrote this book. He said, I wrote it for you and you and you and you, and he's pointing at all these kids, and you just had goosebumps because you realize that he was trying to help our profession. And then his feeling is that when you go out and I've had in my office somebody comes in with a problem, and I can go to his book, and I know that I've got the best book that could possibly be made. I can find the answer in that book somewhere in simple English that I can understand and I can relate it to a patient. So he's done some fabulous things, and some of it's on the with some of the biggest guys in chiropractic and medicine, and I know. The inventor of the MRI, Terry introduced me to him with that, and Terry just, he's up there with everybody. At the same time, he's down there with the students, helping everybody out.
Right. I had the privilege of going to Colorado, Denver, Colorado, and opening a chiropractic college, and Terry became involved with that very early. And one of my greatest memories there is seeing Terry in it. We had very small classes, especially the first year. I think we had 7 students in our first class. And Terry would come into the gross anatomy lab as they did different body systems and do normal radiology lectures on the view box right there in the anatomy lab. So here's the smell and the cadavers, and the students are working. And he'd call them over, and they'd be there for an hour and a half.
Right.
And he'd have them gathered around and be talking, and he has a way at the view box with students that is amazing. He's an excellent teacher, and he inspires so many of the young students as they're sitting in their first exposure to radiology is so impressive. That it was always fun. I always slipped away from my office and spent more hours there than I should have.
It's funny that somebody could, I tell my wife that he's teaching radiology, but he's inspiring you. I don't know how you do that. Take radiology and inspire people, but he does. He has a way of.
He's been a good manager.
Right.
He's been a good baseball manager also.
Exactly. Yeah, he's just got a way about him that promotes enthusiasm and makes you feel good about your profession. It makes you want to be a better chiropractor. I know every time I see one of his lectures, I go back and I go, oh God, I got to work on some things.
Right.
You know, I want to be like that guy. You know, so and that's some of the things. Yeah.
Now, what contribution has he made to the profession of chiropractic in the state of Colorado, nationwide, and worldwide?
Kind of answered that, but
Yeah, I will say that I'll go back and talk about my time in Colorado. When I went there, I had had no contact with Terry since the Houston Astros baseball game. And I knew that if we were going to have a chance at being successful and have a quality program, which was the only reason that I was interested in going there, Terry had to be involved. And so that was, I felt a tremendous pressure because Terry certainly didn't need me, and I certainly needed Terry, and I knew that. And I knew enough about Terry to know that his motto, just like his father's, was right is right and wrong is nobody.
right.
And so I felt like when I walked in there, I better have my ducks in a row, and I needed to be doing it the right way and for the right reasons. And so I remember I had a meeting with Terry that I felt like was the most important in my career. And he had said, come on by my office and we'll talk for a little while. I've got a little time this morning, come by. And so I told my wife, well, I've got to go meet Terry Yochum, and maybe we'll have lunch, but he's very busy. I know he's busy, so I hope I have enough time to just make the introduction again and get him thinking about the school. And I think that first meeting lasted 7 hours.
Yeah.
Which again shows the intensity,
Right.
because as he asked more questions, he got more enthused. And when I left there the first day, Terry was already talking about what we would be doing 10 years from now, and who else we could get involved, and who in the medical center would be excited about it. And so again, in that sense, he was extremely enthusiastic and very supportive. Within the state of Colorado, I certainly got to interact with the many chiropractors that Terry reads films for. So, we think of Terry as being the lecturer and the author, but he has a very active radiology practice, and is certainly serving patients in that way every day that he's in Colorado.
Right. Yeah. I know that from my point of view, I remember when Terry went to Australia, I thought he's crazy, to go to Australia and teach. I thought, gee, he could do so well in private practice. And then he went out to Australia, and he did so many wonderful things for their school in Australia. It kind of brought chiropractic into more of an international scene with some of the things he presented, his papers, and you'd see all the different things he'd write. And then he started, traveling abroad and giving lectures and bringing that enthusiasm, spreading the word about chiropractic around the world. And then just in Colorado, at the University of Colorado, he's done such great things there. I haven't been out to Colorado to see some of these things, but you read about them in the journals. And the other day I was talking to a friend, presented a case, and a medical doctor here, and showing him Dr. Yochum, had read these X-rays, and he's a professor at the University of Colorado, and he goes, really, a chiropractor? Yes, he is, and he thought that was, wonderful. So, I don't think there's a chiropractor. I was talking to a kid. If you haven't heard the name Terry Yochum in chiropractic, you've been on Mars.
That's right. That's
So
right.
there's not a person. If I mention it that Terry Yochum's my friend, they go, Terry Yochum, and it just seems so weird for me because I kind of saw it from the ground level. He just got out of school, first started teaching, and now I've seen him grow in this profession. And I mean, if Terry Yochum puts his name on something, everybody's going to follow it because they know he's so honest. And I was at a seminar once, and nothing to do with radiology and whatever, and I was talking to this kid, and I said, what are you doing here? I said, well, I saw Terry Yochum endorsed it, and he goes, I really don't know what this is all about, but I'm here because I know that Dr. Yochum recommends it. So, that's why I'm here. So.
Excellent.
All right, final question. What do you believe has been the nucleus for Terry's success as an athlete and/or a chiropractic radiologist?
Go ahead.
You got to meet the guy. It's that intensity. It's how Terry is with that. And you could be talking about a painting on the wall, the shirt you have on, some of those loud shirts he has, and he just knows everything down to the thread on how his suit was put together, I think it's such an attribute because he's got this never say die attitude. So no matter what the position he is, like when I watched him play baseball, if we were in a tight situation, you'd want him there because you knew that he was not going to give in. He was going to give it his very best, and surprisingly, he would take it well in defeat. I thought he'd be, not happy or whatever, but he'd leave that place and just say, "I gave it 100% of my ability," which I thought was, you've heard some of his stories too, and he'll tell us stories when he wasn't successful at something, but he gives it 100%. And then when I saw him put that effort into the book, and then I went down to his basement of his office, and he'd handwritten this book. Thousands and thousands of pages, and that just takes someone with just tenacity, just
Right.
out and out, just. So the two are just correlate back and forth, and I know in my life, sports has meant everything to me. I take it over into my chiropractic part of it, and I can see how he does it, but he does it at a level that, I'll never achieve. I might have made it higher in a baseball frame with it, but he's in the next stratosphere in chiropractic.
Right. One of my great memories of going to Terry's office is going down in the basement.
Phew.
And my memory is there were 12, maybe 14 filing cabinets, full, top to bottom, every drawer, front to back, with just information for the book. All of the handwritten manuscripts, then all of the typed manuscripts that came next, every correction, every version of the typed manuscript, every picture, every radiograph, every picture labeled in files. He could pull them out, and then every reference.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't remember how many filing cabinets were taken up just for the references. Organized by chapter, he could pull out any reference and support what he had written, and
Right.
it was that intensity that went into the book. It goes into his life. I know you've been to his house and in Colorado, and in the backyard he's got a full-blown pitcher's mound to meet the specs of the Colorado Rockies and Coors Field, made by the same company. So it's just that level. If he's going to do it, he's going to do it 100%, and it's not going to be halfway, and it's not going to be any pseudo attempt at anything.
What world famous radiologists have a pitcher's mound
Exactly.
with the exact specifications, like you said, down to the nth degree,
dirt.
the home plate, the
Same
way it
dirt.
sits, the
Yeah.
same dirt, and I'm telling you, he works at that, and now with the umpiring and that type of thing, he was telling us tonight how he placed second in the state in the umpiring test.
Right.
I don't know who first was, but first must be unbelievable. He must have been a major league umpire.
And Terry's gunning for it.
And he's going down.
Right,
He's going
it's gonna
down.
go down.
Going down soon. But
I think one thing that hasn't been touched on that I'd like to touch on is the sensitive side of Terry. Terry's heart. Terry's got a big heart, and he is intense, but when he's your friend, he's your friend. And I saw that also, and unfortunately the school in Colorado didn't make it. And I'm not sure who took it harder. I don't know if it was harder on me or harder on Terry. I remember the day that I called Terry to tell him, and he dropped everything. He came right over to the campus, and he was in my office, and there were real tears running down his cheeks. I mean, he had his heart into that school and into that program and those students, and he was worried about each student. What's going to happen to this one? What about that one? I'll make a call if they need to. Anything they need, you tell me, because I want to make sure that they are taken care of. But also the program. I mean, what he felt like was really going to be beneficial for chiropractic and its move forward in education. And it really meant a lot to me to see how invested emotionally he was in that. He certainly wasn't paid. He was on the faculty, but everything was volunteer, and all of his time and all of his energy and effort. And all of the time he spent with individual students at his house and at his office. And so just to see how emotionally involved he was with that. And he's that way with his family, and he's that way with his friends. And so it's always 100%.
right. Yeah, he talks about some of the great people in chiropractic, Joe Jancy and Joe Howe and these people like that. And he's
He's one of them.
He's one of them. if I had to explain, it's hard to explain, Terry. You know, I know we're doing this interview, but I've never met anybody like him ever. You know, I've never met anybody exactly like Terry Yochum. He's a complex guy, but he's a real simple guy, and just like I said before, he's this kind of simple guy from South St. Louis, and he's still kind of got that St. Louis, you know, accent, and
Right.
you know, it says "warsh" instead of "wash," and but at the same time, he's at such a high level in our profession, but he's still the same guy he was from South St. Louis. Wishing he was at that baseball game.
Right. That's right.
You know, loving chiropractic, but
That's right.
you know, thank God he wasn't left-handed, right?
That's right. Thank God for us, he wasn't left-handed. That's right.